Imagine if Zillow can offer all of that stuff all in-house, their title, their escrow for a flat $1,000 fee. I mean, holy crap, that changes the game.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today is Wednesday. It's our off-market operator show, and I am Mike DeHaan here with my co-hosts Dan Austin and Dylan Cook. And if this is your first time here, this is the show for real estate operators who are trying to figure out how to make massive income and not just passive income with your real estate investing business. On these Wednesday shows, we dive into real estate news, different business tactics we are currently working on in our own businesses, and kind of whatever else we feel like for the week. And so the big news in the real estate world right now is, I guess, the official, I don't want to say launch, or it's not like a launch. It's like a
effective date for the new NAR ruling.
It's a settlement date.
Yeah. The settlement date for the new NAR rules, National Association of Realtors, which what's the too long didn't read, that actually breaks it down. All I know is that buyers agents can no longer get full commissions based off of the purchase price of the house. Yeah. But is there an actual way that you explain it to somebody who doesn't?
I'll say it in dumb terms, and then Dylan can smarten it up. So basically, the understanding is that the way agents were doing commissions, they were posting it in their MLSs, and basically they're saying that the agents were not incentivized to help the buyers or the sellers because their commissions were negotiated on the MLS, and that in turn was price colluding and either holding prices high or low to make a deal happen, which I guess could be true. I think there's a fair argument there. I don't know if Dylan, if you want to fill in the gaps there.
I mean, you can make a case, but in their settlement, NAR is explicitly saying we did no wrong, but we're still going to pay you these billions of dollars. But they want to say they're innocent in this whole thing.
The interesting thing about it too is I did some research on this a while back, and not all MLSs are part of NAR. So the National Association, Spokane MLS, where I hang my license, is part of the National Association of Realtors, which is super stupid, I think, because they force you to pay NAR fees, and then you have to pay MLS fees and all your other quarterly fees and all this sort of stuff. The Northwest MLS, which is a more broad MLS in the area, they're not part of it. They're not even opting in to the settlement, which, what does that mean? I'm not exactly sure. But I guess why I'm bringing it up is the settlement, there's a bunch of other things, but the highlight, the headline one is that it's kind of stupid. You are not allowed to post a buyer's broker's commission on the MLS. So
correct.
If you were,
and the other thing, just to add to that, not to cut you off, Dan, sorry, but you also can't, if you're representing a buyer, you now need a listing agreement to work with that buyer. You can't just go and show them a house willy-nilly whenever you want it anymore.
Which is fine, whatever. That, I guess, protects the agent more than anything, right? But technically, the way they're setting it up is that the buyer should have the option or ability to pay their broker the fee for finding them a house, and the seller should have the option of not even paying the buyer's broker. Kind of setting it up that way, as in the seller, the way it works for those that haven't seen a listing agreement, in our listing agreements here in the Spokane MLS, it says how much are you willing to pay, whether a fixed dollar amount or a percentage, to the selling agent. And usually the selling agent wants that to be 6% because that's kind of the standard. It could be 10, it could be 12, it could be 1, it could be 4, whatever. Say at 6%. The next paragraph down is how much is the selling or listing agent willing, how much of that compensation is the agent willing to share with a buyer's agent that brings a buyer? Typically, if a lot of stuff we do, maybe it's a 4% commission, the listing agent will get 1.5 and the buying broker will get 2.5. That's pretty standard split for a lot of flippers. Now and then that, I should say, will get uploaded and input. The form will get put in the actually, the form doesn't get put in the MLS, but the data from the form gets put in the MLS. And so buyer's agent pulls it up in their MLS, this is a 2.5% commission. So basically now they can't see that. And the way you find out is you text the agent and be how much are you offering?
Yeah. Correct.
Right.
Yeah. And so you can't just do it on the MLS, but if you have a private Facebook page, your own little website, or you're just putting it on social media, you can advertise anywhere. The co-op percentage all you want. It just can't be on the MLS.
Yeah, it's kind of
so that's silly. The annoying part. If you're an agent, you're let's say you're working with a buyer and a listing pops into their your predetermined portal that you made them. You have to call or text that agent every single time, hey, are you offering a co-op? And if so, what is it? And then you have to go back and have that discussion with your buyer. Like, hey, they're not, you and I signed an agreement at 3%. They're only willing to pay 1.5%. Are you willing to pay me 1.5 out of pocket?
Yep.
I mean, I almost feel like what they should do is just like, if you're a good buyer's agent, just figure out a different way to get paid. It was like, you're going to pay me $5,000, whatever.
Flat fee. That's what a lot of people say too. It's like, or
yeah.
on a per hour basis. Hey, I'm charging $50 per hour for a house we go look at, or all the paperwork I have to do, or all the comping, the analysis.
And I think on the buyer's agent side, that makes sense. Like if you're showing buyers around instead of like worrying about a commission and, like, here's what I'm going to charge you to do this. It's going to be a fixed rate. Maybe it's $1,000 and I'll show you unlimited houses. And I think it'll probably get to that point sooner rather than later, because buyer's agents are usually the new agents, right? They're the ones slogging across town and just always like working evenings and weekends because they have no other option. The listing agent's the easy job, right? The buyer's agent's the one that should usually get the higher split if you think about who's doing the most work.
Honestly, that's true. That's so true.
Well, kind of the funny flaw with that though is you're right, but we already know the buyers can't fucking afford anything anyway. That's why they're like looking to bring in other stupid laws, like they're what's
like the $25,000 down payment assistance.
The Kamala Harris like $25,000 down payment assistant. So is that going to go just towards your buyer's commission, your buyer's agent commission? They're going to start being like, we're $25,000. You're going to give me that, right? First time home buyers bonus that you're getting.
Yeah.
Well, in the settlement too, like it was only really the big dogs have to pay anything, like Comey and Shepherds, Berkshire Hathaway, Keller Williams, obviously. Yeah. And so like you had to do like over 10 billion. I forget what the number is, but you had to do so much volume to even be like named in this case. And there's a difference between being like a real estate salesperson and having the realtor title, which is just like a monopoly on the name.
Yeah,
and
realtor is not,
it doesn't give you anything else.
That's just a name. Exactly. It doesn't give you anything else. It's an act, like calling somebody a realtor is not necessarily a factual statement if they're not part of NAR.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what the middle and long-term implications for this are, I don't know. But like, I feel like over the short term, what's probably going to happen, I would imagine, is probably not a lot.
I think here's what I think is going to happen.
All of my flips, I'm still giving a 3% co-op.
Right.
I'm not changing anything.
That in the near term, but I think it's the writing on the wall of where it's headed, which is people are like, cool, we don't need any more, MLM brokers here. We have technology called Zillow and others. And I really think that these are like micro steps that are actually turning into large leaps towards essentially not having real estate agents being paid in the way that they're normally paid. And I think that the Zillow model actually becomes much more interesting to buyers and sellers, or much more like viable option.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny, Dan, because you say like moving away from the MLM brokers. I feel like directly correlated with this change is an unfathomable rise where people are just promoting these MLM brokerages that they're now a part of at a level that like I didn't even really realize it was a thing until all of a sudden I see all these people that I respect very much, like good operators, that are suddenly shifting their audiences and like what they're kind of promoting on their social medias to be, directly promoting their brokerages, whether it's EXP or Real. And I don't know how these brokerages work, but there's definitely been this massive shift from like good people. Templeton Walker down in Phoenix has been doing this a ton. Our good friend Shelby over in Lexington, who's no longer hosting her podcast and is now going all into being a broker. Craig Curelop here in Post Falls has a very large audience, is now an EXP agent. And the funny thing is like, I've heard how those models kind of work, and there's always these recurring words of like, oh, you're building your downline, you're building your team, like all these different things that it's structured, and how they kind of pitch it is exactly the same as how people pitch like the different supplement MLMs out there and like all the other stuff that people used to get tied into. I feel like 10 years ago that's mostly gone away. But like, is that the direction that the realtors are going now? Because they're not going to get paid the same for doing real estate. They're just going to recruit each other.
I figured it out here. So I found thelazyagent.com/real broker LLC explain. This is a legit website.
Lazy Agent.
So they have a screenshot of the real REAL with the backwards L. Their structure. So it's all about downline. So 1 through 9 agent, you get 5% of their commission up to $4,000 per agent per year. Okay. So then if you recruit your agents from 10 to 14, you get 4%, 15 to 19, 3%, 20 to 24, 2%, and then 25 plus tier one agents, 1%. But then below that, if any of those agents become like a tier one, like they have a downline, then you get 3% of their tier one, 4%, and it starts going. So then it's like, it stacks up to where if you get 100 agents, I mean, that's $400,000 just based off of, like your commissions. Well, estimated $400,000. Like,
assuming any of them do any freaking deals,
Right.
which they won't because they're too busy recruiting other agents.
This is true.
Like, it doesn't
Exactly.
make any
This is
sense.
true.
It takes away the incentive of actually selling homes and just turns you into like, hey, join our team and like all this.
Well,
kind of
it
stuff.
reminds me of the Amway stuff, right? Where I used to know guys that do the Amway stuff, and then they were so busy recruiting other people, then those people recruiting people. Like, who's selling anything? You guys all have bottles of water sitting in your apartments that say whatever it was, like infused with nitrogen or something. I don't know. Like, what's going on here?
So here's the thing. I don't know how these brokerages work. Do they have like a cost to start up with them or a monthly recurring cost?
No, it's
because
I
if
think
they
it
do,
depends
that's
on
where
the
it starts to get
brokerage.
real fishy.
I know one of them does, but it's like it was low, but it was like $50 a month or whatever.
Yeah.
But you also have to pay your E&O on top of that,
Yeah.
which is out of your own pocket. That's not covered by the broker.
they make you pay your own
Yeah.
insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like where stuff like, Amway or Advocare or Isogenics or all those sort of ones started to get real weird was not only are you getting a portion of the profits, which are now getting smaller and smaller and smaller as things go down your line or whatever, but they're also making people invest heavily up front to like purchase all these products and things basically on day one that they then aren't able to sell because no one wants to buy their shit. And that's where the money's coming. That's feeding up the pyramid.
And that's where it's like, is it the Ponzi like behavior?
Yeah.
The MLM versus Ponzi, because if you're using that money to feed the person before you, when's
Yeah.
House of Cards fall?
So
Exactly.
it's for real. It's $249 joining fee, a $30 I don't know what that is fee, and then $12K annual cap. So that's cool. You're capped at $12K for commissions,
Okay.
and then you have a $285 transaction fee, and then so they have some pretty low fees, but they definitely have recurring income coming in. But also you can choose to get your commission splits paid in stock.
That's a big thing with EXP. I do know that, is everyone was like driving up the stock, and for a while they were loving it, but in the past year I think they're like 30%, 35%.
Yeah. Now we're getting into like Enron territory. We're going to start just like creating all this stock to pay all these people.
People are going to
because
start
the stock doesn't
buying
actually
stock
exist.
with their actual like everything. They're going to be like going back to the company like, I want more stock, and then it's going to tank, and then they all lose their.
And they're going to
retirement.
start splitting stock to be able to feed the new people that are coming in that are want to get paid in that instead. God, what a fucking nightmare.
So where I hang my license, it's not an MLM, but it's they don't take, it's a flat fee brokerage where they take zero commissions, but I pay, I think it's like $300 a month just to hang my license there. And then I also pay my own E&O, but then everything else is on my own. But I say that we have the most signups at our brokerage in the past 5 to 10 years now. And I think that is a reflection of it's getting harder to sell and buy houses right now. So people don't want their commission splits taken from them.
Yeah.
Well, is that a local brokerage or a national brokerage?
It's, I guess, a mix of both. I think we're in like 3 or 4 different states, but primarily where I live.
Okay.
Yeah. It's such a hokey business model, honestly. Like the way the brokerages kind of get set up. Because the funny thing is, too, because I feel like brokerages kind of exist because they want to have like these regulations and these protections around how real estate transactions aren't taken advantage of, all those different things. But how the models are run apparently isn't regulated at all. You can come in and just like make up your own way that you're going to build a brokerage.
1099s, man.
Yeah, as long as you follow like your state laws, and then they don't really. And I don't even know how you enforce some of that stuff.
It's genius, is what it is. I mean,
right.
they're making
in
a
the
ton
days
of
of the being a realtor, and you might have inside access to a house that's listed down the street. That might have been worth it. But if you're a buyer sitting in today's shoes, you're on Zillow, you have your own saved searches, and all you did was find your house, send it to your agent. Your agent filled out some forms and got paid $15K.
Exactly.
That, that's where like kind of the hesitancy.
Well, when you
in.
find out, and this is a big part of the settlement, like with the NAR stuff, is then you find out, I could have got my property for 20% cheaper had I been able to negotiate that commission. Because if you think about it, like say that they're willing to give 6%, and the buying or the listing agent wants 3%, they don't really care where that other 3% goes, right? But if they sign it around, if they sign you around and become a dual agent, they want that, right? which is like kind of bullshit because they were willing to do it for 3%. So the seller and the buyer should be able to negotiate that 3% or that 20 grand or whatever it becomes of that buyer agent's commission off the price. So then the buyer's missing out on the potential to get the house for 3% cheaper because the seller and them couldn't negotiate that commission out. Because if I'm a buyer, like you're saying, Dylan, I go on Zillow, the listing agent's they've done their work. They put in their marketing money. They've got a listing. They're pretty jacked. They deserve to get paid. They did a bunch of work. They paid for pictures and all that sort of stuff, signage. And you go on Zillow as just some Joe Schmo and you're like, I like that house. I want to call that agent. You should be able to say, hey, I'm coming with no agent. Are you willing to negotiate with your buyer the 3% off the list price? They might say yes today, but in a busy market, they're going to be like, no, I just want all 6% for myself. Come on, show up.
Yep.
Right. And that's not, but that discussion's not even being had because buyers don't even know they can do that.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, what you just said. They don't know that that's a negotiable thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I do honestly that just think that in general, the way that realtors are paid with it being a portion of the purchase price is weird, right? Because why did it take so long for them to just realize that it was a conflict of interest for the buyer to get paid based off of the property sells for the buyer's agent? Of course, they're going to collude for it to be higher. Right. They're going to make more money, right? And then on the seller side, in a lot of markets, like if you're selling like luxury real estate, like big luxury real estate, sure. There's like a network that you have. There's like a whole way that you stage it into open house. There's a lot of work that goes into selling like a $6, $7, $10 million property. If you're in freaking Ballard, right outside Seattle, and you have a 2-bed, 1-bath house that for some fucking reason is now worth $950,000, should that agent actually get paid like 30 grand for listing that house? That's no different than selling a 2-1 in Cleveland. I don't know. Right. Like honestly, it doesn't make sense for them to make that much money off of it.
And when you get onto the nitty gritty, like when the inspections come back, right? Both agents are technically incentivized to get the deal closed because that's how they get paid. Yeah, totally. So can you like that's where like they say that, quote unquote ethics come in. Can you with the straight face be like, oh, that's not really a big deal. You should buy the house anyway. Or are we actually going to go to fight and try to get these, as much money off as you can for that seller,
exactly,
or for the buyer?
That's a good point.
Yeah. So like how stuff works, and if you go to like other countries, they don't have realtors. They'll have like a real estate attorney or like a closer, or they'll have like a brokerage that helps basically work both sides. But you just pay a flat fee commission period. Like
if you go to a title company, can you even use an agent?
No, there's not a thing. Basically, what you do is if you want to buy a piece of property, there will be like a listing agent that has all the properties. Okay, and you say like, I'd like to buy that one, and they go, okay, cool, and they go and they take your information as a buyer, and they go to the seller and say, hey, this buyer would like to put an offer on your property. They're offering this much money. Would you like to accept that? And they go, no, we would not like to because of X, Y, Z. And they go, okay, cool. And they basically go back and forth, but there's no like salesmanship on either side. They're
like literally an arbitrator almost.
Yeah, they're an arbitrator or like an attorney, and then they'll make like $2,000 to $3,000 just to do like all the paperwork and everything else. But if you like how you negotiate to buy or sell is up to you.
Right.
You don't have like your agent that is, telling you one thing and then playing inside baseball with the other agent where they're just like, hey, I think that we can get them to agree if we just, do this.
Well, just think about all the fees that if you're traditionally buying a house, all the fees and inefficiencies for like third parties, you got title companies, escrow companies, you have appraisals, inspectors, real estate brokers. You have like processing fees at this bank, processing fees over here. Like there's a large percentage. We're not even talking about taxes yet, right? There's a large percentage of what's going out of that the seller really is kind of giving up. The buyer's having to pay some too, which means they're affording less. So the sellers have to keep their prices to a lower amount as well. So it's like pretty inefficient system, which is where I think the Zillows and other folks can kind of come in and really start making things more efficient. Because imagine if Zillow can offer all of that stuff all in house, their title, their escrow for a flat $1,000 fee. Holy crap, that changes the game. And then as more and more people, which I think this last run up in the market, more and more people got comfortable with using Zillow to both list and buy houses or at least view houses. I think it just becomes, you're so much more comfortable and that becomes the brand standard and people just go to it.
Yeah. And I think the one thing, it's funny. I think my stance has probably shifted on this being a wholesaler and dealing with like weird ass deals all the time is how valuable like a good title company actually is versus like when you're a retail buyer, you're like, why did I just pay this person so much money? Because they probably didn't do anything, honestly. But when it comes to stuff that we deal with, where it's like a probate and there's 9 people on title and they're having to like do all this stuff to get together, or there's like a really complex like laundry list of liens that they're having to figure out how to get paid off. If you have a good title company, they're totally worth paying. But for most cases, Dan, like you're talking about, why doesn't, something like Zillow just basically do that in-house? But like, why do we even need a middle person? Why can't you just like go and post on some website that the house is up for 300,000 and you just go and you just say like, hey, I'm going to bid $300,000 for this house. And then the person can receive it as like a web form and accept it or deny and go that way. Like, why do you even have to have a person in the middle? Honestly.
I mean, I do think you're seeing a rise of for sale by owners. I should actually try to pull that data, because people don't want to give up 6% of their equity, right? They're actually, not even equity, it's home value, which is more.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like, more percentage of their equity. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know. Well, what do you guys think this means for like investors as a whole, both as like flippers or, long-term property values?
I mean, for us as investors, the cheaper the fees get, the better it is, honestly. If I don't have to pay 6% off what I'm selling the price for, I can then pay more for the property.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see. I don't see any major, especially in the near term. Like, I think the near term status quo stays the same. I think it's like the smart person that's going to use this as an opportunity to create something. Maybe that is Zillow, who has a lot of money to create something here. Maybe it's some third party we don't even know about that's going to create something that's going to add value or maybe take value out of the system. But I think in the near term, we're going to continue to do things. Agents are going to be like, hey, what's the commission? And they're going to find out over a text message or wherever they find it. And it's going to usually probably be about the same.
Yeah. It'll just be, something that provides, I don't know. I think it'll ultimately give the governing bodies the ability to have more oversight if they want to, right? If anything else.
It almost seems like they're going to have less, because now they can't track your text messages, or they can't track the website you posted it to with your commission. I think there's some really good reasoning why they decided to do this, but I think at the same time, it actually made it less like transparent,
cartel-like.
We say that there's like a good reason. What happened is there was someone that was at the top of that whose like daughter, bought like some house, and they felt like they really overpaid, or they found out that there was a collusion, and they were like, that's fucking bullshit. Totally. Hear what they did to Becky? I'm going after them.
Totally.
Well, no one does mention that the lawyers that brought this case to NAR got paid like a 33% of the settlement. They made bank from just making that, totally. Like just bringing this through.
Of course.
That's how all those
like always, the attorneys get paid the most.
Exactly. Those are the real crooks at the end of it. Yeah. But what is going to affect property values, though, we touched on this just before, is that if Democrats get into office, Kamala Harris is $25,000 for
Kamala.
First time home
can we
buyers.
Also add a couple things that she's offering to this?
Is there more details? I've only seen the headline that people either share around in absolute glee or in absolute horror, depending on.
It's just so frustrating because both parties do this. I don't know what the Republicans are saying. Actually, I've just only seen the headlines with Kamala, because I think some of the stuff people are like, really? You're in office now. You could actually make those changes right now. But the $25,000 credit, or I don't know if it's how they worked. I don't know if it's going to be a credit or whatever. The $6,000 for people that have a 1-year-old or under. So Dylan, whoa, you can make some money here, dude.
Yeah, I know.
For every 1-year-old you have?
For every kid that you have under the age of 12 months. So like if you pump out a kid, like you're going to get a $6,000 credit that year.
I'm just going to start fucking adopting.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Exactly. Now you're starting to think. Then there was she's going to build 3 million houses in her 4 years as president, which is wild. And there's some they're going to do that through like tax incentives for first time home builder, like the builders that are building like entry level homes. And then the other one was that she's going to go after price gouging and price collusion and reduce the cost of groceries. I don't know how that one's going to work.
Yeah, that one doesn't make sense because most grocers make like 1% to 2% margins. So that makes no sense.
But those are all kind of the things, right? Like that's the bucket of things right now. But I think the ones that affect the real estate market the most would be the $3 million house. 3 million houses in 4 years, which we haven't been able to do in 30 years. And then the other one being
here's the other one. Credit. They introduced a first ever tax incentive for home builders.
That's what it was for.
Who would only sell to start like first time home buyers.
Poor people.
So basically, like you're gonna make so they have to sell it to a new time, a first time.
Yeah, that's how
And
I'm
so these
interpreting
builders
this.
are gonna be like, sweet, where's the cardboard I can use to build this house?
No shit.
You know, if that's how those things work, right? Is like there's somebody will make
Yeah.
a shit ton of money, and it won't be the American public.
Yeah. God, the funny thing is, as you're breaking through that, I mean, and you know, I don't know how much of that is true, has been misconstrued through all the different lines of media and everything else, or what the specific details are. But on all sides, you know, not a political show, you really start to realize how little, like, I don't know, the people at the top of
know anything,
the country know anything about how shit works. Right. Like even just the logistics alone of building a $3 million house. Do we even have enough raw materials for that?
Don't.
Let alone the price piece. Where the fuck is the wood coming from?
Right.
Or
right.
the
Because they're also
jurisdiction.
going to do
Like every jurisdiction is different too. Like, you know, what's a starter home in Ohio is different than a starter home in California.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, just like even at like the base level. So they're going to do this, the $3 million house. That's a hell of a lot of raw material while also pushing a green initiative that reduces manufacturing.
Yes.
Right. Like, I mean, there's so many different pieces. And, you know, they're also going to make sure those homes are affordable for new people while increasing minimum wage and making labor more expensive and increasing taxes on various things so that, you know, they can, you know, have
here we go.
more money as the government.
Hold on. Sorry, not to cut you off, but to add some more flavor to this, the proposal for the $25,000 down payment assistance is for first-time buyers who's paid rent on time for 2 years, or
how are they going to know
their
that?
parents weren't homeowners.
Or their parents weren't homeowners. So they have to pay rent, or their parents weren't. That's even more interesting, because now what's going to happen too is you're going to have people that are like higher income that are like, yeah, I fucking paid my rent. They're going to be taking advantage of that.
Well, there's still going to be, it got to be income thresholds. I have to assume, right? I got to assume. But
They always.
But here's the thing.
But does the government paying your rent qualify for that if you're on subsidized housing?
Good point.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah. So here's the reality of it, though. These policies sound pretty incredible for house flippers and people like us who are offering homes mostly in the entry level. A lot of times these progressive policies do benefit because the government is essentially dumping money into the economy, but the only people that can get access to that money are the poor people and the wealthy people. Right. Because the wealthy people are the ones with the assets that they're going to sell, ideally. Right. Ideally, you're a flipper and you're wealthy. I don't know why you're flipping if that's not the case. But for us, I mean, if they really did drop that tax, like 25 grand, I mean, that to me just increases the price of an entry level home, not by 25 grand, but probably by more than that. A percentage, you know, of the purchase price goes up quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so here's like really the play, right? If you're a savvy house flipper, if the Democrats get elected, there's going to be a window of time while they try to figure this out, if they are going to do this, where comps don't necessarily represent the increase in property values, but you know that it's coming. It's going to be like in the 6 months that they're in office in 2025. In that period of time, you should be hoarding houses like a freaking real estate dragon,
right?
And just sitting on them for like 9 months so that you can offload all of them for $25,000 more than you were expecting.
But do you not think that would happen? That would happen. For sure.
I mean, like it will happen for some people, but I'm saying that like even people like that are flipping, I don't know, 10 or 20 houses a year could probably find an angle there if they're lucky. Yeah. Right. Like honestly.
No, I agree.
Which
so if you're a house flipper, you should be both. Yeah.
Of what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it does.
It is totally.
Exactly.
But I mean, but also too, I mean, we say that, but very realistically, us as investors or house flippers are a very small percentage of the market. As in like a larger picture, it will probably help out more people. But those of us who are freaking bottom feeders that are trying to figure out how to game the system, we absolutely have an opportunity.
Well, and the entry level home builders, the national home builders like NAR, DR Horton, all these places, those are the ones that they can turn on a dime and pump out houses that cost a guy like us to build 500. They can build it for 300, sell for 4. You know what I mean? Like they can move into that new home buyer, and we're seeing it all over like where we live, Mike. Like we have a lot of. The first time ever in the last few years we've had national home builders here, and they just go and buy like 10 acres and just pump out house after house after house so fast, so efficiently, which is good for first time home buyer stock, and they'll be the ones that profit the most. And I mean, they're already billion dollar funds anyways, but that's really where it goes to. But bottom feeders like us have a little chance to make some money too.
Totally. So Well, so I guess if you're a house flipper, I know a lot of you real estate guys are big on the Republican side. Time to turn Democrat because they're trying to give you money. They're saying we are going to give you $25,000 per house that you sell in the starter home bracket.
Go progressive.
Is there, I guess, is there a chance or they try to push this through like this year? And then if they lose, it gets all repealed next year?
No, I don't see them pushing.
Of course, that's how everything
They're not going to push it through this year. There's no way. There's no way.
I don't know if they haven't. I don't know how politics works.
You mean
like you need enough time
before the election?
They're not going to waste any of that on Biden, dude. Like they wouldn't do that. That would not be.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
No. Yeah, I don't think so.
It would be next year. But I mean, what'll happen though is it'll be there for that short window of time, and then if they lose in 2028, it'll all just go back to whatever.
Right.
Like
so alternatively though,
nothing ever gets done.
We have like 2 minutes left. Alternatively, the argument is that if Trump gets elected, and I don't have any idea what his policies are, I actually haven't looked at any of them, that there's a sense that the economy will go on a tear. Does that reflect the real estate market, or do you think the real estate market gets negatively affected?
I think that even though they're supposed to be independent, and he put Jay Powell, the Fed chair, in, like he's the one that put him in that seat, he would press him to lower rates, and I think that would just be an uptick for prices.
Really? There's an argument that it's a downtick, though. Now, let me present that argument if I haven't done this before. The argument is that as interest rates go down, people that have been sitting there locked in at these low interest rates that do want to move, do want to sell, finally come to the market to sell, and inventory actually goes up.
I think there's more people trying to buy than there is trying to sell. I just agree. Supply and demand.
I think it's still supply and demand heavily in favor of like demand, right? Like there's so many people. We have such a housing issue in general. Like I think that the supply would have to increase such a disgusting amount.
Couple that with the statement I think you made a couple episodes, Dylan, was that when interest rates go down, the economy actually goes into recession.
Typically, but it's usually short-lived. They usually, by the time the Fed stimulates, they're usually a little bit too late.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you're still like, there's this lag effect between like the downward pressure and them coming back up. But to your point about the interest rates, we were in an unprecedented 2 to 3, like our house mortgage is 2.5%. Like, I don't think you're ever going to see those rates again. So if you're me and rates go back down to 4 or 5%, that's still not an incentive to sell.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people who have those 2 to 3, maybe mid 3s, low 4s. And if you can't get back down to that, then
you're smart though, Dylan. Like not everybody's that smart.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, you say there's no incentive to sell if you're looking at like the interest rate point, but if your house is suddenly worth $600,000 more than you paid for it, 8 years ago, that's a lot of money to people. They'll probably
we don't have that appreciation here.
Here's I think there's I think the argument is this: maybe it'll be more tempered because there's a lot of people saying that it'll go on a tear. If interest rates go down, it'll go on a tear. And on the other side of the argument is like, no, it won't go on a tear. It'll stay flat or it'll go down. Actually, maybe it just tempers itself and it doesn't go on a tear and it doesn't drop down. It just tempers itself and it just feels kind of like a slow like movement of properties, like it kind of has been recently, but maybe just a little bit quicker than it is. You know what I mean? Because the highs and lows kind of temper it out and it actually like works out and it doesn't go high, it doesn't go low. I
mean, me as an operator, I'm running my business pretty much the same it has been, but I do like the lower ish price points in my market at this point in time. Then I think of the cycle.
I agree.
And I think if you can stay in that range, you're going to do just
always have something to sell there. Mm-hmm. Good point.
Yeah. As long as people keep beating the drum of the American dream, there's always going to be somebody to buy those starter home houses.
Hell yeah.
So where it gets weird is that middle price point, right? Like the not quite for rich people, but too expensive for the first timers.
Yeah. That's the scary part.
Avoid, which, yeah, I think you've always kind of wanted to avoid that, but now more than ever, you can definitely get bit pretty bad.
Agreed.
So cool. Right on, guys. Good conversation. Anything else to wrap up?
Nope. I'm good.
I think I'm good.
No. Cool. Right on, guys. Well, thanks for listening. I would love your own opinions on these parasitic agents with their MLM schemes or the NAR stuff, or don't tell me about politics though, please. I hate it. You can keep that shit to yourself. I just don't
send Mike all your politics. Send him all the conspiracy theories.
Don't
do it.
Don't definitely don't do it. But either way, we'd love to hear more of your thoughts around different things real estate related. So you can hit us up on Instagram. I'm at Mike_invest. Dan is at InvestMan Dan. Dylan is at Dylan_does_deals. And appreciate you guys listening. Talk to you guys next week.
See ya.